Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Hello, and welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast, episode 97. I am your host, Matt Jackson. Cooper is dealing with first week of school. Started his crew work back on Clemson's campus, but don't you guys worry with me. I've got my co-host, Matthew Rupert.
How you doing this week, my man?
Man, it has been such a crazy week. I know I was telling you off the podcast, I don't know, for all the dads out there, man, if anybody else fights getting your kids to go to bed, we've been on that struggle bus all night tonight. My kids, we've been doing a bunch of crazy stuff this weekend. So my girls are just not wanting to go to bed tonight. So I'm going to preface this podcast by saying, if you hear any commotion going on in the background, it's most definitely my children.
That's forgivable. This week, my youngest son decided that he wants to start potty training. So we've been doing that, having all that fun, cleaning up some messes, but it's going a lot smoother than the first time around. I think it helps having an older brother that can, kind of guide the way and show him how it's done.
I felt that with our youngest walking, seeing her older sister running around all over the place. She started walking a lot faster than maybe we would have wanted her to, but she's up and moving now, and now we're just off to the races.
I've been joking with my wife, once he's fully out of diapers, we're going to have a very nice, expensive date night to celebrate no longer having to buy diapers. It's going to be great.
Exactly right. Unless I don't know if yours, mine, my oldest regressed, and we have to start putting her in pull-ups again that night. So that's been fun. But we're not going to talk about our killed children all podcast. Don't you guys worry about that. Tonight, we are back continuing our divisional series. We started the series a couple of weeks ago where we were going through each division in the NFL, looking at a bunch of things like off-season questions, players to watch, teams that might make a splash, and everything related to the divisional, to the divisions as you prepare for the start of your dynasty season. And, we've been talking a lot of NFL-related news and NFL-related topics, but we are, of course, a dynasty podcast, and the framework that we take throughout these questions is going to have a dynasty focus. So tonight we are moving on to the NFC North. And if you're sitting there and wondering, what teams are in the NFC North, that would include the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. So tonight we'll be going through each of those four teams. And as we always do, we're going to start with some off-season questions to discuss. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with I think the team that a lot of people are really excited about this coming year, and that's the Chicago Bears, right? They added Ben Johnson to the offense as the head coach this year. A lot of people expecting big things from the Chicago Bears. They've, of course, surrounded Caleb Williams with all sorts of weapons. So the first question I had is related to that for you. With the addition of Ben Johnson, all the weapons that they have on offense, do you think Caleb Williams will make the jump to top 5 quarterback this upcoming season?
I don't think so yet. I think it's a little too early. I could totally see him getting there over the next couple of years. To me, there's just too many good quarterbacks ahead of him to break into the top 5 yet. You got guys like Josh Allen, Lamar, Hurts, Burrow. Those guys are always going to be top 5 at this point. So I think it's a bit of a push to say he's going to get there this year. I really hope that he can catch on to the system quickly and everyone has buy-in with the Bears so that we can really start to see those flashes, because he has all the talent in the world to end up being a top 5 dynasty QB and, a guy that can help carry you to a championship. I just think this year is probably a little too early. It's just his second year, his first year in this new system. The Bears have a big culture shift going on right now. I'm sure there's a lot of adjustment for everyone on the team. So I just don't see it this year, but I can totally see it in the realm of possibility in the future.
Yeah, I don't think it's a talent issue, right? He's got all the talent in the world, and they have gone far and away to make sure that they're going to surround him with the weapons to succeed. And one thing that we were really kind of missing last year that we know is in Caleb Williams' repertoire is his rushing upside, right? The ability to rush around and dance around and get those much needed rushing yards, which if you're looking for a top 5 QB, that's what you're looking for. You're looking at those guys that can go out and get the rushing yards. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you're already looking at, your Lamar, your Hurts, your Josh Allens, all probably going to be up there. I know I made a strong case for Dak Prescott to return to form. I mean, if he's the type of quarterback that he's been in previous years, I mean, he's in that conversation. You do have the Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts. Like, there's just a lot of guys.
Jaden Daniels as well.
Jaden Daniels is up there. Yeah, I mean, this season, like I said, it's not a talent issue. I really don't think that's the issue. It's, learning an offense, learning a new coordinator, like that takes some time, right? And I think it's going to take him more than a year. Like top 10 quarterback, I see that all day, right? But I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback right now.
Agreed.
So the next question that we have kind of is on the flip side of that, right? So I talked a little bit about Ben Johnson going to the Chicago Bears, but that leaves a hole for the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions this offseason lost both of their coordinators, which is just really interesting to think about. So that kind of plays into this question I'm going to ask you a little bit. But do you think we see a regression in the Lions as a whole with the departure of both of their coordinators? And then a follow-up to that, do you think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery can return to where they were both running back ones a couple seasons ago?
As far as regression, I think it's only natural. Like you're replacing 2 very good coordinators, arguably the best offensive coordinator in the league. That's a tall task to really replace him and not drop back a beat. I don't think the defense is going to suffer as much. And the reason I say that is, although there wasn't a very good defensive coordinator, they're getting back their best defensive player that really makes that defense hum, and Aiden Hutchinson. So I don't think they're going to see as much of a drop off on the defensive side, but I don't think there's any way that you can, say that the offense is not going to drop back a step because we know who Goff is at this point. He's not really an ascending player that's going to, make up that difference. They do have some better, hopefully, production on the outside with Jameson Williams this year, hopefully having that blow up season after really turning the corner last year. But overall, I just think there's going to be a small step back, but not too big, because they have, a great captain at the helm of their ship with Dan Campbell. So they have the good leadership at the top in place. So I'm hoping that they don't miss too much of a beat, because they're such a fun team to watch.
Yeah, like I sometimes wonder how much of that offense and how much of the resurgence of Jared Goff the last few seasons was because of Ben Johnson, right? Which makes me excited about what we're going to see from Caleb Williams this year, because he is a QB guru, it seems like. But yeah, I mean, I think naturally that offense does have to take a step back. The second part of that question, just with the can they both return to being a RB1? I mean, I think when we saw them doing that, right? Like, I mean, I don't know when David Montgomery was an RB1. I think that season there was so many running back injuries, and he had I'm trying to remember 15, 16, 17 rushing touchdowns. Like, he was just a goal line monster. Like, I think that's what has to happen for David Montgomery to be an RB1. And I just don't see it, right? Like, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is naturally taking steps up each and every single year, which is going to eat into David Montgomery's workload. And if David Montgomery doesn't get those those goal line vultures, like, he's not going to be an RB1. Like, he's going to be a usable handcuff. Like, I'm not saying he's not going to be, a usable flex option for some weeks on your team, but I think gone are the years, especially with age and everything, that both of those guys are RB1s. Do you have any thoughts behind that?
Yeah, I don't really think age is the issue. But I totally agree. I think Montgomery's just, an RB2 at this point, a flex option for you. And the reason I say that is that, piggyback off your point that the year that he did finish as RB1 as well, there was so many injuries. now we have this influx of one of the best running back classes that we've ever seen. So there's going to be a lot of other really good young running backs that are going to be vying for this, the top 12 RBs this year. So I just have a really hard time seeing Montgomery be able to crack in there.
No, 100% agree. I want to share this comment, Garrett. Going back to our conversation earlier, Garrett's got a 2-year-old that is wanting to poly training, but they have another on the way. Garrett, I will tell you to wait as long as possible, because as somebody that just got done with the potty training thing, and Rupert is apparently in it now, not a fun thing to be a part of.
I will say the opposite. Go right into it. Get it done if they're showing interest. The quicker you rip off that Band-Aid, the better it is.
Well, moving on, we got a question that I think everybody's really wondering when it comes to the Green Bay Packers this year, right? And especially from a fantasy perspective. Which receiver is going to emerge as the wide receiver one in the cluster that is that receiving core, right? They have got like 4 or 5 usable wide receivers on that roster. They all I think that offense is definitely it's a benefactor of spreading the ball around. That team is definitely more of a Jordan Love is feasting more than anybody else, but now he's got to deal with the injury, right? So it's an interesting thing to be thinking about. I'm going to answer this one first. I honestly think as much as we're kind of lukewarm on Matthew Golden, right? And especially with the price tag that you had to pay for him in the offseason was not something that we wanted to pay. But with that being said, they did spend the draft capital on him. I mean, I can't remember. I don't know if you can, the last time they've drafted a wide receiver that high.
I don't think they ever have, actually.
If they ever
I think
have.
it was the first time they've ever drafted a first round.
So, I mean, with that being said, he has to be your bet, doesn't he? I mean, as much as we were lukewarm on him, I mean, I have to assume that Matthew Golden is going to get all the opportunity in the world to run away with that wide receiver one job.
Agreed. And I mean, Jaden Reed was the only guy that could probably challenge him for it, and he's in a walking boot right now. So I see Golden running away with it. Do I see him going for 1,400 yards? No. 900 yards, definitely in the realm of possibility. Like you said, I liked his tape. There's just something in me that just felt like something was missing, that he's just going to be solid, not spectacular. Could totally be wrong there. I liked his route running. He didn't look quite as fast as he tested, but he looked fast. And yeah, he has good opportunity with a very good quarterback and offensive system. They do spread the ball around, so I don't think he's going to be a target hog. But I totally see him being their wide receiver one by a decent margin this year.
I don't know. When it comes to me, I don't know if you kind of feel this way a little bit, but I'm just kind of avoiding all the Green Bay wide receivers at this point. I mean, I'll draft them in later rounds if the value's there, but I don't necessarily want any part of that roster.
They're more best ball plays.
For sure. No, and if you play in a best ball league out there, definitely look at Matthew Golden, but that's about the extent of where I would want him on a roster. Last team we're going to talk about is the Vikings. Do you think J.J. McCarthy is the franchise quarterback for the Vikings? I've heard some stuff in training camp where he maybe doesn't look as good as people anticipated him to look. So where do you land on this whole J.J. McCarthy train?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, we've seen time and time again what Kevin O'Connell can do with a quarterback. I think he has the skills. I think he was more pro ready. He can, drop back from under center. He looks good out of play action. To me, like it may be like a lazy comp, but I see like a Kirk Cousins plus kind of player. Doesn't have the greatest arm talent, but solid accuracy. Can turn his back to the defense, spin around, and know where to go with the ball. I think O'Connell is going to do everything to get him set up to win. We've seen it past 3 years. He's done it with 3 different quarterbacks. So I really don't have any doubts that he can do that with J.J. McCarthy. It may not be QB1 kind of numbers, but I think he's going to be a really solid quarterback.
And if he can do what he did to resurrect the bones of Sam Darnold, right, going all the way back to your boy in Carolina, he looked atrocious for the Panthers and then apparently turned into a QB1 for the Vikings. And I think a lot of that was O'Connell, right? So if he can do that with Sam Darnold, there's no reason to believe he can't do that, I don't think, with J.J. McCarthy. And look, I mean, J.J. McCarthy is going to have the weapons, right? He's going to have Justin Jefferson. He's going to have T.J. Hawkinson. Going to have Jordan Addison. Like, the weapons are there. So as long as he just distributes the football well, like, he doesn't have to go out there and be a superstar, which I think is important for somebody like J.J. McCarthy, who doesn't have the greatest arm talent in the world, but is a serviceable enough quarterback to spread the ball around that he can just take advantage of a situation, right? So definitely an agreement there with you on that. We're going to take a quick break because I want to tell you guys about CouchScouts.com. If you are not subbed to CouchScouts.com, now is a great time to get in on the family over here at Couch Scouts. We've got lots of great things happening right now. Anything from consultations, and I know, Rupert, you've been doing a lot of those, and people just seem to eat those up. Just seem to really enjoy going over and play-by-play and kind of discussing a strategy for their team. We've got our rookie guide. I know some of you guys are still at this point, still doing some rookie drafts, and we have labored to make an excellent product in the rookie guide. We've got a free Discord, as well as an extra podcast that we're going to be recording right after this, going over a 1QB redraft mock. So really excited about all the things going on. We've got some stuff in the pipeline. So now's a great chance to get into it. We are on episode 97, and I want to just reiterate that we do have a contest going on right now. If you leave us a 5-star rate and review on any podcast platform that you're listening to and send it to Cooper, and his link to his email will be in the show notes whenever we post this podcast. Just show us proof that you gave us a 5-star rate and review, and you'll get entered into a contest to win some merch. So make sure you guys get in on that over at CouchScouts.com. All right, so we are going to move on and discuss some players that we're watching this upcoming season. And I'll go ahead and go first. I think the first player that I'm interested in watching is going back to the Chicago Bears, right? Keenan Allen is no longer with the Chicago Bears. He's gone back to the Chargers. And the player that I'm interested in watching this upcoming season is Rome Odunze, right? Came into his rookie season and didn't really have the kind of exploding season that we thought that he might have, right? He didn't do horrible. He had a decent enough season, but he didn't meet the standards I think that he had on himself and that a lot of people had on him. Finishing the season with 734 yards and 3 touchdowns. Drop passes were, I think, an issue for him, if I remember correctly. But I'm excited to see what he does. Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. Can he come in and take over as the wide receiver 1 on that team? They've got the draft capital. They've spent the picks on him, and he's got another year in that offense with one of the best offensive minds, as we've talked about in football, leading the charge. So I think that Rome Odunze can potentially come in and have I think it's well within the realm of possibilities that you're looking at maybe 1,000 yards, 1,100, 1,150. I mean, I think that's well within what he can do. And right now, the price point that you can get him at is not too bad. I'm trying to look at his ADP right now, but I think last time I looked, it was in like the 6th, 7th round, which is a cheap price to pay for Rome Odunze for what his upside could potentially be. So Rome Odunze is the first guy that I'm looking at watching this upcoming season.
100% agree. I think he's a great buy. Get him before his price skyrockets, because I think that's going to happen as the season goes on. One of the guys I listed was the guy we just got done talking about, J.J. McCarthy. Not too much to add to what we talked about earlier. Very intrigued to see how he plays out this year. Getting to start with O'Connell and all those weapons. Be very interested to see, just how high up does he finish this year? Is he going to be like in that Brock Purdy range? Is he going to be more in that mid to low end QB2 range? Very interested to see how this season goes for him. But probably the main guy I'm very interested to watch this year, and I know you're going to love this one, is Jameson Williams. He was the guy that we loved coming out of the draft. We had very high hopes for him. Hope that he would have turned the corner earlier in his career. But we really started to see the fruit of that last year. And I'm very interested to see if he's able to become more of a target hog in those short to intermediate routes, and really get closer to the 80, 90, 100 catches this year and eclipse that 1,200 yard mark. I totally think that he has the talent to do that. I hope he can put it all together, and really form one of the best duos in the league with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, he's somebody that we've talked about a lot the last few weeks. I know that me and you are a little more excited about him than Cooper is, but I really think this could potentially be Jameson Williams' year. Everything that you hear coming out of camp right now is talking about just how many steps forward he's taken this year. He looks like a cleaner route runner. He looks like he's got his head on his shoulders and he's just ready to keep his nose down and get to work. So I think that's a great call out. But the other one that I wanted to mention was Sam Laporta, tight end for the Detroit Lions. And here's the reason I'm interested in watching him or keeping an eye on him this upcoming season. If you look at Dynasty Data Labs and their startup ADP right now, Sam Laporta is currently going as tight end 3 in the 4th round of startup drafts. But if you look at his finish last year, Sam Laporta finished as tight end 8. Again, it's respectable. That's not a bad finish for a tight end. But I think Sam Laporta is somebody that we had a lot of hopes coming in, especially after his rookie season, right? Everybody was like, okay, is he the next great tight end? And people are still up until this point drafting him like he's an elite tight end asset. Some of the guys that finished above him, Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Jonnu Smith, George Kittle, like guys that you can get much later. So here's the reason why I'm interested in watching Sam Laporta this year. With the regression that is potentially coming for that Detroit Lions offense, can we see Sam Laporta take the step forward he needs to warrant the tight end 3 drafting in Dynasty Superflex leagues right now? Again, finishing as tight end 8 is no laughing matter. That's a good finish, but for the price you got to pay for him, like I want to see him step up, and I'm interested to see if he can take that next step forward this season.
I really like that call out. And I'm going to name another guy that we talked about earlier, and that's Matthew Golden. And the main reason is because his situation changed a little bit with Reed hurt. The path to him being their wide receiver 1 and getting more targets than I was expecting is there. So I'm very interested to see if my, let's call it intuition about him was off. And, you know, my fears about him not being a wide receiver 1 and being more of a wide receiver 2 is true. Very interested to see how that plays out.
No, that's a good call. And I know we're all going to be eagerly watching that Green Bay Packers wide receiver room to see if anybody really steps up. So I know that's a great call out. We're going to move forward to our next question. Which team do you envision surprising people the most? Which team do you envision surprising people the most? I'm going to throw it to you first, Rupert.
I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. The reason is the last 2 years, they've been the youngest roster in the NFL. This offseason, they didn't do much as far as free agency. They didn't lose too many guys from their team. They had a okay draft, I would say. Adding Golden was nice, especially with the news of Reed being hurt. But the big thing for me is, can Jordan Love be healthy? I think a lot of people forget, like, all last year he was playing through lower body injuries that could really affect, like, his platform, how much power he could generate, forcing him to throw more with his arm instead of his hips leading the way. So I'm very interested to see if they can really turn the corner and put it all together after being such a young team the last 2 years. Now that those guys have gotten more and more experience, are they able to really turn the corner and return back to, pushing for the NFC Championship?
Yeah, no, I like that call out. The team that I chose Admittedly, I had a hard time with this half of the question, Rupert, but I ended up going with the Minnesota Vikings. And here's the reason I went with the Minnesota Vikings. I think a lot of people, if you were to ask anybody, would say that that season last year was a fluke for them, right? Nobody anticipated Sam Darnold to be the type of quarterback that he ended up being last season. And I think that those fears were proven when they lost in the playoffs, got essentially blown out and just embarrassed in the playoffs last season. Coming into this season, I don't know if anybody has those expectations for them, right? I mean, they finished as, I believe, 14-3 last year. And I don't think you could ask any Vikings fans right now or anybody that watches the Vikings and would hear them say, yeah, they're going to be a 14-3 team this year, right? I'm hesitant to say this, but I think there's a possibility that the Vikings could still be a pretty decent playoff team this year. I believe in J.J. McCarthy. I believe in that offense. I believe in Kevin O'Connell and that team as a whole. And while they may not be 14-3 this year, I think they might surprise people in the fact that I think they could do it again. I think that not a lot of people expect them to be as good as they were last year, but I think they could potentially be right on par, maybe not finish 14-3, but I think, 12-5, 13-4. I mean, I think that's well within the realm of possibilities. And I think that would surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to forget that they really only kind of started to fall off the rails last year after they had some devastating injuries on their offensive line, particularly with their left tackle. If they can get that O-line healthy again, I totally agree. I could see them putting together a very, very nice season again.
For
And
sure.
I don't know about you, I still haven't gotten used to the 17-game schedule.
I have not. No. I think at this point, though, I don't know. This is going off on a tangent if you're listening, but you're just going to go off on a tangent with us. I feel like we still don't need 3 preseason games.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer. What if we went down to 2 preseason games and added an extra bye week for teams?
Yep.
I think that would be a great idea. But
I think it's going to happen. I think it will happen.
I don't get paid the bid bucks to make those decisions. I'm not Roger Goodell. So we'll see what happens. But we're going to move on to our next question, our last one for the night. And the question is this: which team will leave us the most disappointed? And I'll go ahead and start. The team that I threw out there were the Detroit Lions. And before you turn off the podcast, right, let me explain myself. Let me explain myself a little bit, right? When I'm looking at teams that are going to disappoint, right, the only other 2 options really were the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. And I think at this point, both of those teams to me seem like they're on the uphill of the up climb a little bit. They seem like they're not going to be overly good, but I don't think they'll be overly bad either. I think they're just right there in the middle of the pack, which if you're in the middle of the pack, I have a hard time thinking you're going to impress or surprise or disappoint anybody. But when you turn over and look at the Detroit Lions, we've already talked about it, right? They've lost both of their coordinators this year. I think a regression is due for the Detroit Lions, as much as I don't want it to happen. Look, I would love to see the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong. But I think that a regression is due for the Detroit Lions. And I think right now the standard that they have is deep playoff run team and fighting to go to the Super Bowl. That's kind of the expectations that a lot of people see the Detroit Lions having this year. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. So for me, that seemed like the easiest pick for most disappointing team.
I can totally understand that one. I went a little bit different direction. And frankly, just to be a little different, I saw your pick of the Lions, and totally agree. I feel like this is that's the most reasonable pick to be disappointing. But I'm going with the Bears here, and the reason is I feel like people think that it's going to be an instant turnaround with, they got Ben Johnson, they're set, playoff team, locked and loaded. I don't think so yet. And the reason, granted, they had a really great offseason. They really beat up the offensive line in free agency, spent a ton of money there. shored up the inside of that offensive line. And then they went and drafted playmakers with Loveland and Burden in the draft. But to me, there seems to be like a systemic issue with the culture with the Bears. And I feel like that's something that's frankly going to take more than a year to turn around. And, I think they'll probably need another year, another offseason to really reload that roster, bring in more Ben Johnson's guys, bring in better culture fits to really jumpstart that turnaround. I think they're going to be improved this year. I don't think they're going to be quite as good as a lot of people think that they're going to be because Ben Johnson's has arrived.
I think that's a fair argument, right? Like, rarely do you see a head coach step in and immediately change the culture in year one, right? Like, it normally takes a few years to kind of get the coach's philosophy and the culture built in. I mean, we saw that. I mean, I'm kind of tooting our own horn a little bit, like, but you saw that with Nick Sirianni, right? It took a few years to really get that culture that the Eagles have built into play. And I think we're going to see the same thing with Ben Johnson. So I think that's a great call out. Love that shout out there. Well, guys, that about does us for our episode tonight. Talking about the NFC North, guys to pay attention to, teams that are going to surprise, teams that are going to disappoint, and then some off-season questions. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I want to take a second to plug our free Discord. If you're not into the Discord community, it's a great time to get plugged in right now. The start of the NFL season is right around the corner, and the Discord is just absolutely hopping all the time now. So many people talking, so many people. I mean, we got a game day channel in there where we're just talking about preseason football. So if you're a dynasty degenerate like we are, it's a great community to be involved in. The link to that will be in the show notes. Again, make sure that you remember to leave a 5-star rating review. Send it to Cooper. We would love to enter you to the contest. And right now, if you entered it, you'd have a pretty good chance of winning because not a lot of people have done that. So make sure you leave that 5-star review and you can potentially get some merch. But we will be back with you next week, continuing this divisional series, looking at another team in the NFC. We hope you guys